We're here to share with you inspiring stories that bring to life all the little and big ways that people bring more love, joy, laughter, and humanness to everyday life. Our focus is the hunt for those little moments that refuel the human soul and reminds us what life is really all about. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the moments, enjoy the stories, the adventures, and the journeys. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of What the World Needs More Of. My name is Jarek Robbins. I am your host of this journey. Today we are joined by a longtime friend that I've known for quite some time. His name is Dave Sanderson. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jarek.
Well, we're going to start with the question of the show and dive right in. And the question is, what do you believe the world needs more of?
That's a great question because with all the things going around the country and the world right now, I think the world needs more gratitude to appreciate that we're all in this thing together. And candidly, if we have a more focus on gratitude for what we have instead of what we don't have or what somebody else has, I think we could all be much better off.
I love that. And how do you practice that each and every day in your world?
Well, that's a great question because after the miracle on the Hudson, that really was started to be one of my key focuses. I figured out after that I had a whole different mission in my life, and I was just grateful to be alive. And the people I was speaking to, I think, realized that when they were talking to me that I was sort of a shift in my mindset where I was so focused, driven on achievement. And I step back and say, focus on gratitude and contribution. I think it helped me attract more people into my life. So I think that's what really changed.
I love that. Now, you mentioned something, which was the miracle on the Hudson. For those who aren't familiar, would you mind giving us a quick insight on what that was?
Sure. Well, it's if people have heard of the miracle on the Hudson, or if they haven't, it's a plane that crashed into the Hudson River on January 15th, 2009. It was noted as the most successful water landing or ditching in the history of aviation. And I was just happened to be on that plane that day, and it was a life-changing experience, not only because I survived a plane crash, but it gave many lessons, or I got to employ many lessons that I learned throughout my life that not only I got to do that day, but now I get to speak about and teach people by using this practical experience that people know about and can go back and read about it through history.
That's powerful. And do you still get on planes today?
I just got off a plane a few minutes ago, so I fly over like you over 100 times a year. So it's I think that's one of the great questions I usually get, Jarek, because some people from the Miracle on Hudson still haven't got back on planes yet, and I started realizing that. And I just realized if you don't get back and face your fear immediately, you may never face it again. And I think I got on the plane the next day. I think that was probably one of the smartest things I ever did. Because the longer I would have lasted in between not getting back on a plane, I had more reasons not to get back on a plane.
I think that's so powerful for all of us, just because we face times in life where stuff doesn't turn out as we planned, whether that's better or worse, but it shakes us up a little. And when it shakes us up, that's the moment to step right back into it and do it again to show yourself that you're on it and you have it. I had a friend who went skydiving, and his original parachute didn't open, and he was freaking out, going, and he pulled the backup parachute, and it worked, and he came down, and his heart was racing. He's like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And they're like, okay, why don't you just rest, relax. He's like, no, I got to go back up. And he got back on the next jump, and he went up there, and he jumped, and the main chute worked, and he was fine. And they're like, that's crazy. Why did you go back so fast? And he said exactly what you just said. If I didn't get myself to do it, I'd probably never get back up there again in my life. And he's like, if I were to get myself to do it right now, I've got a real chance at getting what I want out of life out of this, but I got to face it immediately. I can't let it simmer, and I can't let it turn into a gigantic monster in my head. I got to take it down while it's small.
Yep, and just like you and you talk about likewise, it's you got to face that immediately because you get that emotional, you get the emotions are already intact. So while the emotions are intact, you might as well embed it in your brain, embed it in your body, and the more time it takes, you do have delay in that, less chance you have to do it.
Powerful, powerful. So our
Yep.
second question is, what's your wow factor? What makes you uniquely you, and what are a couple life moments that help shape it?
I think what makes me pretty unique is I've experienced something that very few people have ever experienced, but I've been able to utilize that in a way to also use it in business. And people say, tell me example. Well, one of the things I talk about a lot is, how 155 people that day came together who didn't know each other or care about each other, pulled together as a team. Leaders stepped up, and all of a sudden a miracle occurs. I said, just think if you could do that in your business. Well, you actually care about people. If you could just come together, check your egos at the door, leaders step up, how much more could you accomplish? Because all that was accomplished, Eric, in 6 minutes.
Hmm.
In 6 minutes, people came together with a common mission. So I think that's one of the wow factors I have is I get people a real life experience that people saw on TV. I just wrote a blog about this. About it was one of those seminal moments in history where it's just sort of like when man walked on the moon. You know where you were at,
Hmm.
and people come. Last night, people coming up. I know exactly where I was at. So I think that's my wow factor. And I think that a way I usually try to utilize that not only when I speak, but in my daily actions. I show people, I try to walk my talk. I mean, that's, I think that's people, there's so many people out there that can talk a big game, but people who could actually walk the talk and show and give people that experience. And, we talk about sensory acuity, visually, auditory, kinesthetically. I try to use all the senses and to give that people that experience. I think that's probably one of the things that I do that may be pretty unique.
Powerful, powerful. Here's a question. What's a moment that made you feel incredibly humble over the years?
Well, I tell you, a moment. It's sort of something that I was going to share a little later, but I had the opportunity exactly where I'm sitting right here, where we're talking right now. My wife got a phone call from a neighbor, and they just needed to get their TV fixed. And there's a couple older ladies, and you can do whatever you can to help your neighbors. And my wife called me and said, "Can you go help them?" And I said, "Sure." I walked down there and got their TV fixed pretty quick, and they said, "Will you stay for milk and cookies?" I'm like, "Of course, I love milk and cookies. Who doesn't like milk and cookies, right?" Especially from a couple older ladies who could probably bake, right? So I'm all in. But here's what happened. So they were getting milk and cookies. I was sitting on their couch and looking at some of the books on their coffee table, and they were books of concentration camps.
Hmm.
And I love World War II history. I'll read it, listen to it, watch it. And when they came back out, Jarek, I said, "Hey, where'd you get this? This is amazing." They said, "Well, we were there." They rolled up their sleeves and showed me the numbers they had on the inside of their arms.
Hmm.
And I like, whoa. I said, "Please let me record it." They said, "You can't record it, but we'll tell you the story." And all of a sudden I heard this story, and I was so humbled to be in the presence of these ladies. And I said, what if in my life now, if I could take people like this who've been through one of the most horrific situations in the history of the world, hook them up with other people who are going through other traumatic life experiences, give them a point of perspective like, yeah, you're going through a challenging time, but these ladies not only survived but thrived and came to the United States and had a life unbelievable. So now that's what I do. One part of the things I do, but it's called post-traumatic growth syndrome. Help people grow by giving these people alternative, what I call virtual references. So I think that day was one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had to be in the presence of people who actually survived something that candidly 6 million people didn't.
Wow. Wow. And what was the term you used for that again?
It's called post-traumatic growth syndrome, and it's something I had never heard about until I was approached by AARP, and they wanted to interview me for their magazine. And candidly, I didn't know why they wanted to interview me. I knew nothing about them. I thought I was too young for it anyway. And they said that they had heard that I'd helped the American Red Cross raise over $8 million at that point, and they asked if they could interview me. So I did. They said, "We're using you as an example of what's called post-traumatic growth syndrome. It's the opposite of PTSD.
Hmm.
It's the strategies on how people grow from traumatic life experiences instead of going to a depressed state."
Hmm.
So that's what I did my TED talk on, and it was an amazing experience. I got to speak on the TED stage about this one thing that no one's ever heard about.
Hmm. Powerful. And hopefully we can get in the tips in a little bit more in the conversation.
Yep.
To connect with how to help people go through that.
Yep.
But I'm
Sure.
going to jump into my next question, which what's an awe-inspiring moment? A moment that left you with your jaw on the ground, just a moment of awe.
Well, I've had a few of them. You know, I think, and it's just, and you may have even been there when this happened. You might have even been on the property, but when I had the experience of being at your father's life mastery, and I had the opportunity to escort General Norman Schwarzkopf,
Hmm.
and being around a four-star general was awe-inspiring, but just being able to just ask him a couple questions was like, to me, it was like, I've been around a lot of people like that, but being around the presence of somebody who's accomplished something like that, I think that was really something that stuck with me. It still sticks with me to this day. It was one of the most awe-inspiring experiences I've ever had.
Well, I'm curious. What did you ask him?
Well, I just asked her. I just said, General, how did you win the war so quickly? I say, I just want to know. We were together. I mean, I was, as you know, as I was part of the security team at that point, and I was responsible. And he gave me an answer, but what he wasn't expecting is this. I said, can I ask you another question? And he looked at me like pretty audacious. He's like, well, no one ever asked a general second question kind of thing, right? I mean, you got I gave you the answer, right? You're a young kid. And he told me, so he started saying, I'll tell you how I won it. And he started telling me his strategy behind getting people focused on the mission. And that was his job as a leader, to focus people on the mission, course correct when he needed to. And also I'm learning these lessons from a four-star general about how to get people focused on mission. That's the key to how he got things done. And so that's what I do in my world, teach people how to get focused on the mission. And we can do that just like we talked about on the plane that day. We had a common mission, right? I didn't aspire. I mean, we all came together. We didn't even know each other, but it was a common mission. So that, after having that experience and being able to live it in an experience like a plane crash, it really backed up what he was telling me.
Powerful, powerful. What about this? What's your greatest fear?
I think my greatest fear is that I won't be able to give enough. One of my focuses every day is how can I add even more value, right? I want to add more value to people. How can I give more? As Zig Ziglar talks about, right? You give more, it comes back. And I think one of my fears is I get stretched too thin. And I haven't. And one of the challenges I think I have, and I got to work on, is around time management, is making sure I get the people around me who deserve my time instead of need my time. And that's what I'm working on now. So that's probably one of my biggest fears now, is making sure I'm with people who deserve my time.
And how do you qualify that? How do you qualify the difference?
Well, some people, and we were talking about this a little bit before you even came on. Some people want to talk to you, and they want to use your name, and they want to be around you, which is very honorable, right? I'm honored. But people who deserve the time you can tell it in their voice and tell the way they approach you is they have a need. They have a need, but they want to connect with you on a different level, and they're more, I think they're more interested in how I got to where I'm at instead of saying, just give me something. See, I get that all the time, and I'm honored that people want to talk to me, Jarek, but candidly, people are just going to just give me the strategy right now instead of, I had to spend 55, 56, 7 years of my life to learn this. It's not, I mean, it's delayed gratification, right? It's just not overnight. And I talk about that, what happened to my mission. I got did my mission statement at A Date with Destiny back in 1994. It was 2009 before I started realizing that. It was, God's delays are not God's denials. But, people want to, the people who need something just want it right now instead of learning that you got to put the time in and put the reps in, just like Tom Brady does. Tom Brady's 40-some years old. He's still putting the reps in. That's why he's the greatest of all time.
Powerful, powerful. Now, what are you most excited about for your future?
Well, and one of the things I'm really excited about is this last summer, and I just shared this a couple of weeks ago. My first mentor's name was Bill, and here's the short story about Bill. I met Bill in 1986 when I was managing restaurants, and the first thing I knew about Bill is he wore a flannel shirt. He drove a pickup truck. That's why I met Bill. That's no big deal. We were in North Carolina, but I found out Bill owned 80 movie theaters through North and South Carolina. He was a multi-millionaire, and he's like the Sam Walton of Charlotte. And he took me under his wing. He was my first mentor. And he was teaching me over the 13 years we were sort of together he was teaching me these life lessons or these business lessons, right? And I didn't know, I was putting things together, but sort of, you're still young, you start to figure things out. But what happened this summer was this. Bill passed away in 1997, and right before he passed away, he gave me something. And he gave me handwritten notes that he took back from when he got from his mentor back in the 1920s about his 12 principles to business success. And he got this in the 1920s from his mentor, who probably got from somebody in the early 1900s. He said, and his last time I talked, he said, Dave, your job now just is to pass this on. This is going to be part of your legacy. He said, promise me you're going to pass this on. So I promised him that. Now, 20 years later, we're coming up. All of a sudden, I'm opening this book up and I'm rereading, and I found those notes. And these are handwritten notes from the 20s. And so I'm sitting there reading. You talk about awestruck. I was awestruck. So what I'm most excited about now is I'm going to take this. I'm packaging this up. And that's why I talk about people who deserve it instead of need it. Everybody needs this stuff. I'm going to work and talk with people who deserve it, who really want to take this on and will promise me that they'll take this legacy on to the next level, because this stuff's timeless. Stuff a lot of people have taught, but Bill packaged it up in a way that made it so powerful that now I'm practicing it, and now it's my job to pass it on. So that's what I'm most excited about.
That's exciting. That's very exciting. Yep. I'm also curious to know what these 10 principles are.
Well, I'll share with you the first two of them, okay?
Let's hear
the first principle is number one thing he told me is take personal responsibility. And that's what it's interesting because this is the 1920s, and this is right before the Depression. And he was a young guy. He said his mentor told him if he doesn't take personal responsibility, then he'll never be able to grow. That was number one. He gave me this whole strategy on how to do that. And the second one is something that you do. All the great people do is they invest in their own personal development. And it was interesting because back then is when Think and Grow Rich and all that stuff was coming out, right? And Bill said he started reading these books in the 20s and 30s, and all of a sudden he bought his first theater. He told me the story. He bought his first theater. And that's when the movies were sort of getting to be a big deal, right? All of a sudden, the big Hollywood was coming into play. He said he bought this theater in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we live, and he let people in for pennies. But people remembered that they let him in to give them entertainment in a downtime during the Depression. So people kept coming back and kept coming back. He started developing the same strategy that Henry Ford and all these guys did, right? And like the assembly line, all of a sudden he started building an assembly line like it for theaters. And that's how he grew his empire. So these are great. These are lessons that, everybody sort of talks about, but all he did is really package them up for me and gave me the strategy that he got when he was a kid. And, and the last one, I'll give you number 12, because number 12 is the one, we talk, affirm your mission every morning and before you go to bed. So, we talk about affirmations and things but he said every morning he'd do it when he get up and before he go to bed. So it's ingrained in his head. So every morning when he get up, he knew exactly what his mission was every day. So those are 3 of the 12. I'm excited.
That's so powerful. I was talking to someone this morning, and they said their 2019 goal for themselves is to stay consistent with what they said they were going to do. And that's the exact piece of information I shared with them. I said, I could almost guarantee if you're inconsistent with something, it's because you're not reading it first thing in the morning and last thing at night. I guarantee it, because if you read it every morning and every night, it's just in the forefront of your mind. You're going to do it. It's so powerful. So powerful.
I agree. One of the things he shared with me is form good habits and become their slave. Have discipline, and it's that discipline of every morning and every night. And I agree with you. So these are great things, and I'm really excited to be able to share this with people who deserve to learn this and who will promise to take it on to the next generation. Very
cool. Very cool. Well, we're going to switch gears to the second part of our show. We call this nuts and bolts. It's the tangible, tactical, practical, applicable type stuff someone can immediately apply into their daily life or business. And so the first question of this section, there's only 3. The first one is, where do you spend the majority of your thoughts and time and life each day as of right now?
I have shifted that in the last several months, where I'll be very candid and very open. I'm pretty all over the board. But I'm consistently put discipline into my business, and so I spend a lot of time now, not reading, but listening to the old books, the books I've got, so I can get that in my brain. Because I've realized if I can do a lot of the administrative stuff, Jarek, like a lot of people do. Sometimes I do get bogged down, but if I spend that time every day and I spend a lot of probably 3 or 4 hours a day listening to new books and listening to things, I get so much more creativity in my brain going. I can now impact more people's lives and add value. So that's what I do.
That's powerful. Now, what's a key to your success in that? How do you make that happen?
You can use tech. One of the things I learned, I actually had the opportunity to meet a Super Bowl coach when I was flying. I was actually flying on a private plane that day. I took a private plane, and we just happened to be in the private airport at the same time. I got to talk to him, and I asked him some of his strategy on how he won the Super Bowl. And he was giving me sort of that strategy. He's like, every day I had to get people. You can use. This is what he said. He said you can use technology as a tool or something that hinder you. He said, I choose to use it for my team as a tool, because most teams, when they walk into an NFL, locker room, NFL meeting, they'll tell you to put your phones away. He said, I don't do that. He said, I get them out because one of the things I tell my people to do is I make a commitment to is turn your notifications on and commit to 3 things, what it's going to take for you, what kind of person do you need to be to win the Super Bowl? Not how many push-ups and how many reps you got to do, what kind of person you need to be. And he says every day you have to come in and he lets them have their phones out so they can be reinforcing their brains what they've committed to themselves and what they've committed to the team. So that's one of the things that I talk about when I do my talks is I give them this little bit of information. Get your phones out. We're going to commit right now to what kind of person do you need to be to get whatever goal you set for this year. And it can bring it up 3 times a day. It comes up on your phone. And I said after about 2 weeks, you get really tired of seeing it, but you get so ingrained, you hold yourself to a different standard.
I love that. And so final question, what's one tip we could leave everyone with that they could apply in their life to achieve the kind of success that you've experienced in yours?
Well, number one thing, and I think number one is you take care of your health. And that's, it sounds sort of maybe mundane, but Kayla, I think unless you take care of your temple and your body, you won't have the energy to serve. And I let my body go a little bit, and all of a sudden I didn't have the energy to serve. So I would say the one tip you can do right now is, and you can do whenever. But I do it at 5:30 in the morning. I get my blood flowing. I got to do whatever it takes to get energy in my body, so I can go 10 or 12 hours of serving at all different levels. And I say if you don't take care of your health first, it else doesn't matter. And then secondly is I pray every day because I was actually in a business meeting with my minister, Canley, and we were talking and things weren't going real well, Jarek. It was one of those meetings where no one was happy, right? And all of a sudden I turned to my minister. I said, hey, kid, what did Jesus do? Every day of Jesus' life wasn't pixie dust to sunshine. I mean, Jesus had some bad days. He said when Jesus had a bad day, he'd go out back and pray. And I said, maybe that's a pretty good strategy. So I always start the day with a prayer and sort of get me centered with a prayer in my health. And all of a sudden, the day started out in a great way.
I love that. I had a quote this morning that popped up. It said, a person who has their health has 1,000 wishes, but a person without their health only has one.
That's right.
I was thinking, wow. So take care of your health. Take care of your health. Pray daily.
Pray daily, especially when you have a bad day.
That's when we need it most. So if people want to learn more about you, how to bring you out to their organization, to have you come and speak and share, how to learn more about your book and other things that you're producing, where do they go to find you?
Well, I appreciate that. Well, the best way is my website at davesandersonspeaks.com. You can get a hold of me or get my information. But LinkedIn is really where we're putting a lot of our information right now and a lot of our content. So LinkedIn under David Sanderson would also be another way to get in touch with me.
Perfect. Well, we're going to make sure that's in the show notes. So if you're listening in, make sure to go to the show notes, click those links, go and visit Dave online, find him, connect with him. He is a very good man that I've known for quite some time now. And if you like this episode, if you know someone who needs to hear this episode, please share it with them. We believe that sharing is caring. We like caring people around here, so make sure to share. And Dave, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Jarek. Thank you very much.
And everyone else, I look forward to seeing you all next episode.